It's about the good news of Jesus Christ. It's about the good news that anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved, that we have hope. We don't have to wait till we get to the throne room to know, well, I hope I've been good enough to make it in. We know we have the hope of Jesus Christ. That's why they call it the good news. And that's why we are compelled to go and share that good news. Go ahead and stand up here with me, Jan. I like you standing next to me. Let me direct your attention to these handouts that we put together. We're not going to go over them tonight. I'm kind of giving you a quick outline. That way you kind of know where to find information. We've got in here kind of an overview of who we are. If you don't know, most of you do, but kind of an overview of who we are. An overview of the history of African Inland Mission. They have a very rich history and heritage working in Africa. We're not going with an organization that's been doing this for just a few years now. We're partnering with an organization that's been in Africa for over 100 years. They were initially established in Kenya, and their desire was to establish a series of missionary stations that would start on the coast of Mombasa, Kenya, and work inland with the goal of stopping the spread of Islam south. So they were up against Islam 100 years ago, just fighting the same battles that we're fighting today. So they have a very rich heritage and a very rich history. I went ahead and put in there the AIM statement of faith and their core values. African Inland Mission is a interdenominational organization. It's comprised of Christians, of evangelical Christians who adhere to a very evangelical core doctrine. Jan and I are Southern Baptists. We've grown up in some different churches, but since we've been married, we've always attended the Southern Baptist. So doctrine is very important to us. It's not something that we're wishy-washy on or something that we shy away from. I mean, I love good doctrine, and I would not partner with an organization that didn't have sound doctrine. But I wanted to go and include the AIM core values and the AIM statement of faith so that you knew kind of who they were. You haven't had the advantage of looking at this organization for over a year and a half. And so I wanted to include that so that you could have that in hand and feel good about who they were as an organization. I do want to draw your attention to this map in here. We have a map of Africa where AIM is currently serving. They have other countries that are not highlighted on the map that they have missionaries in, but for safety reasons, security reasons, they consider those creative access countries or restricted access countries.
Creative ones, some of these are creative access countries.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I think, but so then the restricted access countries are the ones that are.
Yeah. So, but here just kind of gives you an idea of where they're at, what they're doing. Initially, Jen and I would be in Kenya, which is in East Africa, and that's AIM Air's base. That's where they are based at. Think of it like FedEx or UPS. They have a kind of a hub and spoke system. FedEx is based in Memphis, and they have a series of spokes that go out into the country. That's very similar to how AIM Air is established. Their hub is in Nairobi, Kenya. They have an international airport there, so they can get parts and service and all that. They can coordinate with the government as far as regulations go. But then they have a series of spokes that go from Nairobi, Kenya, into the remote parts of East Africa, Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania, North Kenya. AIM Air is flying into Sudan nearly every week, taking various supplies and serving the missionaries that are on the ground in southern Sudan. So some very volatile areas, but some places that really, really need to hear the gospel. And then finally here, right after the map, so I wasn't going to walk through it, but I'm going to go over this. We have the 10 most asked questions that Jan and I get. We tried to put our heads together and come up with about the 10 most asked questions that we get about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then try to answer it there for you. So if you see your question on there, please still ask it, because we'd love to answer it. But it may be in there, and there may be, you might learn some stuff in there. Finally, I wanted to talk about kind of the nuts and bolts, our ministry timeline. We shared a little bit about it the other day, and then I'm going to shut up and let Janet talk about church partnership. But the timeline there is this coming January 2013, we're going to be moving to Worthington, Minnesota to begin working with Proclaim Aviation full-time. That is a opportunity for me to focus exclusively on making sure that I am as competent and as capable as I can be to serve as a missionary pilot. And so that's what we'll be doing in Minnesota, in Worthington, and be working with a business. It's called Integrity Aviation, and they have these apprenticeships for guys that want to go into missionary aviation to come up there and make sure that they've got all their skills like they need them to be. We will be in Worthington for about a year. Sometime during 2013, I'll do a technical evaluation with AMER, where I'll go and they'll evaluate me for 2 weeks and make sure that I'm ready to go. If I'm not ready to go, they'll say, hey, go work on XYZ, and I'll go work on XYZ. But the idea is, and this organization, Proclaim, is what they do. So the idea is that if we go up there and fly myself, and that I'll be ready for the technical evaluation. Won't have any issues, but I'll do that next year sometime. Once we finish our commitment in Worthington at Proclaim, we will join African Inland Mission full-time as missionaries. Sometime right after we join, we'll do an orientation stateside for about 3 months. A lot of that's technical orientation for me. Summer of 2014, that's a year and a half from now. The plan is to go ahead and move to Africa. So we're a year and a half away from moving to Africa. That's kind of the timeline. Financial support, ministry partnership. I shared this also a little bit 2 weeks ago. What does it look like? What do we need to do this? We need approximately $35,000 as an outgoing expense, a one-time outgoing expense. What does that cover? It covers we're a family of 5. You know that. So just the plane tickets alone are going to be a significant chunk of that. But it covers our transportation to Africa, our immunizations, our visas, our household setup. It covers my technical evaluation. It covers my technical orientation. It covers the cost of me transferring over all of my certificates and ratings and any government-type stuff that we'll need to do to fully establish residency in Africa. So when you think about all that it covers, it's really not a lot. And the on-field orientation, which is about 6 weeks long, and part of that will be living with an African family. In addition to that one-time expense, we need about $5,600 a month to be missionaries in Africa. And I kind of broke that out as far as what that covers, where all that money goes. But about $5,600 a month for our family, a family of 5, to be full-time missionaries in Africa. Oh yeah, $5,500 because Pastor Bob already committed $100 a month. Thank you. What can you do? And now I'm going to kind of turn it over to Jana now, and she can kind of answer that question as far as what can you do, and she's going to talk about just kind of how we feel about partnership and how we feel about church partnership and what we desire your role is.
When I was overseas the first time, I knew how important the church was to the missionary, but it was not until I came home and was on the other side of things that I saw how important the missionary can be to the church, and how important it is and how good it is for the life of a believer and for the life of the church to have connections with what God's doing around the world. And, you know, we've all heard before, God wants us to give, not because He needs our money. He really doesn't need our money, but He wants us to have the blessing of giving, and He wants us to really be a part. And that is what we're just starting to learn this so much more through this process. The word partnership is becoming so important. You know, they used to call it fundraising, and now we call it partnership development. And the more that we think about that and learn about that, that really is. And it's been even on my mind about investors recently, that, you know, when you invest in something, you care about